Marcus Chun had always been the type to crack jokes when he felt nervous, and standing on the observation deck of the USV Meridian while it orbited Kepler, 442b definitely qualified as nerve-wracking. The planet below swirled with unfamiliar colors, deep purples where Earth would show blue oceans, and crystalline formations that caught the alien sun like scattered diamonds. First contact protocols are in effect, announced Captain Rodriguez over the intercom. All crew members are reminded that we are guests here. The Zephyrians have agreed to allow a small diplomatic team planetside. Marcus adjusted his standard-issue jacket and checked his tablet again. As a xenobiology specialist, he'd studied every piece of data they'd received about the Zephyrians over the past 3 months. Humanoid, but distinctly alien, tall, slender beings with translucent skin that shifted colors based on their emotional state, and what appear to be natural fiber-like extensions growing from their heads instead of hair. The shuttle bay buzzed with activity as the diplomatic team prepared for departure. Marcus wasn't part of the official delegation, but his research on Zephyrian physiology had earned him a spot as an observer. He'd dreamed of this moment since joining the Galactic Survey Corps 5 years ago. The shuttle descended through Kepler 442b's atmosphere, and Marcus pressed his face to the small porthole. The Zephyrian city materialized below them, not built up like human cities, but grown with organic curves and flowing architecture that seemed to breathe with the landscape. Spiral towers reached toward the sky like enormous plants, their surfaces rippling with bioluminescent patterns. Ambassador Williams, a seasoned diplomat with graying temples, leaned over to Marcus. "Remember, Dr. Chun, we're here to observe and learn. The Zephyrians have been remarkably welcoming, but this is still uncharted territory for both species." The landing pad appeared to be made of the same organic material as the rest of the city, pulsing gently with soft light. As the shuttle touched down, Marcus felt a mixture of excitement and apprehension that made his hands shake slightly. The airlock hissed open, and Marcus got his first taste of alien air. It was breathable. The Zephyrians had evolved on a world with similar atmospheric composition to Earth, but it carried strange scents. Floral, but not quite like any flower he knew. Oxygenated, but with an underlying metallic tang. A delegation of Zephyrians waited for them, their skin currently displaying what the briefings had identified as formal greeting colors, deep blues shot through with silver patterns. The lead Zephyrian stepped forward, and Marcus was struck by how graceful their movements were, as if they were walking underwater. "Welcome, humans of Earth," the Zephyrian said in surprisingly clear English, their voice carrying harmonic undertones that made it sound almost musical. "I am Administrator Veleth. We are honored by your visit." Ambassador Williams stepped forward to begin the formal greetings, and Marcus hung back with the other observers. That's when he noticed her. She stood slightly apart from the main Zephyrian delegation, and she was younger than the others, if his understanding of Zephyrian biology was correct. Her skin showed different patterns, less formal than the others. Curious purples mixed with quick flashes of what he'd learned indicated excitement or interest. Her fiber extensions were shorter, moving independently, as if responding to unfelt breezes. What struck him most was how intently she was watching the humans. While the formal greetings continued, her attention seemed to focus on details, the way they moved, their clothing, their equipment. When her gaze fell on Marcus, he felt an odd jolt of recognition, as if they were two scientists observing each other's species with equal fascination. The tour began with Administrator Veleth guiding them through the outer chambers of what they called a growth hall, apparently where they cultivated both food and building materials. Marcus tried to focus on the incredible biotechnology around him, but he kept noticing the young Zephyrian following at the edge of their group. As they walked through a corridor lined with living walls that pulsed with soft light, Marcus felt the temperature drop noticeably. The other humans began pulling their jackets tighter, but the Zephyrians seemed unaffected. He noticed the young female's skin patterns shift to deeper blues, which, according to his research, might indicate cold or discomfort, though he couldn't be sure. Without really thinking about it, Marcus shrugged out of his jacket. The group had paused to examine some kind of organic computing system, and he found himself standing near the young Zephyrian. "Cold?" he asked quietly, then immediately felt foolish. She probably didn't understand the casual question, and he had no idea if Zephyrians even experienced cold the same way humans did. But her skin rippled with brighter colors, surprise, maybe, and she looked at him with large, opalescent eyes that seemed to shift between green and blue. "You offer warmth covering?" she asked, her voice even more melodic than the administrator's, but with a slight uncertainty that suggested she was still learning English. Marcus held out his jacket with a grin. "It's called a jacket, and honestly, I was mostly joking. I didn't know if you could even wear human clothes, or if you needed to," or she reached out and took the jacket with delicate, long-fingered hands. Her touch was warm, and her skin flashed with what he hoped were positive colors as she examined the material. "Joke offering?" she asked, tilting her head in a way that was surprisingly human-like. "Well, yeah, but you can actually use it if you want. I mean, if it helps." She held the jacket up, studying its construction with obvious fascination. The human delegation was moving on, and Marcus realized he should catch up, but something about her intense interest in this simple piece of clothing made him pause. "I'm called Lyra," she said suddenly. "Marcus," he replied. "Dr. Marcus Chun." "Dr. Marcus Chun," she repeated carefully, and her skin shimmered with new patterns. "This jacket, it carries your scent signature." Before Marcus could figure out how to respond to that observation, Ambassador Williams called back to him. "Dr. Chun, you want to see this biological computing matrix?" Marcus glanced back as he hurried to catch up with the group. Lyra was still holding his jacket, running her fingers over the fabric with an expression of intense curiosity. He had the strange feeling that his simple gesture had somehow become much more significant than he'd intended. The rest of the tour passed in a blur of incredible alien biotechnology and careful diplomatic conversation, but Marcus found his attention drifting back to the young Zephyrian who had accepted his joke offering with such seriousness. He wondered if he'd see her again, and whether he'd ever get his jacket back. As the human delegation prepared to return to their shuttle, Marcus looked around for Lyra, but she was nowhere to be seen. He felt an odd pang of disappointment. It had just been a jacket, after all, just a simple human gesture that had probably been misunderstood across the species barrier. But as their shuttle lifted off from the organic landing pad, Marcus could have sworn he saw a familiar figure watching from one of the spiral towers, a dark jacket draped over slender shoulders, standing out starkly against the flowing, organic architecture of the alien city. 3 days later, Marcus stood in the communications array aboard the USV Meridian, staring at an incoming message that made no sense according to everything he knew about Zephyrian communication protocols. "It's definitely addressed to you," Lieutenant Foster confirmed, adjusting her headset. The signal came through on the diplomatic frequency, but it's not from Administrator Velith or any of the official channels. The message was audio only, and the voice was unmistakably Lyra's, though her English had improved dramatically in just 3 days. "Dr. Marcus Chun," the message began, and he could hear the careful way she pronounced each syllable. "I wear your jacket. It brings many observations from my people. They ask questions about human warmth custom. I study your clothing construction. Very interesting fiber weaving techniques, different from our grow materials. Request permission to study more about human thermal regulation and social significance of clothing sharing." Marcus blinked. "She's still wearing it?" "Sounds like it," Lieutenant Foster said with a grin. "Want to send a reply?" Marcus thought for a moment. This wasn't exactly standard diplomatic procedure, but then again, nothing about first contact was standard. "Can you set up a response channel?" "Already done. Document." Marcus activated the comm unit, suddenly feeling nervous again. This is Marcus. Dr. Chun, you can keep the jacket, Lyra. I have others. But I'm curious about your observations. What are your people asking about human warmth customs?" The response came back faster than he'd expected, as if she'd been waiting by her communication device. "Your jacket carries thermal properties, but also scent memory." Lyra's voice came through clearly. Among Zephyrians, scent memory sharing indicates trust bonding or kinship recognition. But your people seem to share warmth coverings casually. This creates confusion among the observer caste. They wish to understand human social bonding mechanisms. Marcus rubbed his forehead. He'd inadvertently created a diplomatic puzzle by offering his jacket. "Lieutenant, can you patch me through to Ambassador Williams?" "Already did," came Williams' voice over the comm. "Dr. Chun, I've been monitoring this exchange. It's actually quite fascinating from an anthropological standpoint. Ambassador, did I accidentally engage in some kind of Zephyrian bonding ritual?" "Not exactly," Williams replied. "But you may have provided them with the first direct example of human casual generosity they've encountered. From what we've learned, Zephyrians don't have exact analogs for jokes or casual kindness. Their social interactions are more purposeful." Lyra's voice came through again. "Dr. Marcus Chun, your ambassador speaks correctly. We observe that humans perform kindness actions without expectation of return benefit. This concept is new. I wear your jacket to study this human behavior." But also, there was a pause, and when she continued, her voice carried different harmonics. "It provides comfort that is not only thermal." Marcus felt something twist in his chest. "Comfort. Your scent signature is pleasant, calming. When other Zephyrians question my study of human customs, the jacket provides security feeling." Lieutenant Foster mouthed adorable at Marcus, who waved her away while trying to think of an appropriate response. "Lyra, you mentioned improving your English. How did you learn so quickly?" "I am of the scholar caste," she replied, and there was clear pride in her voice. "Language acquisition is my specialized function. I have been studying your human information broadcast since your ship arrived in our system. Your entertainment transmissions are particularly educational." Marcus blinked. "Entertainment transmissions?" "Yes. I have learned much from Friends and The Office and Doctor Who, though I am confused by the concept of laugh tracks. Do humans require audio cues to know when humor is appropriate?" William's chuckle came over the comm. "Dr. Chun, I think we may have found our cultural liaison." Over the following days, Marcus found himself in regular communication with Lyra. What started as an explanation of jacket sharing had evolved into detailed discussions about human culture, biology, and social customs. She was endlessly curious about everything from human temperature regulation to the social significance of different fabrics. "Your denim material," she said during one conversation, "why is it considered both casual and durable? The construction suggests it should be formal wear, but your broadcasts show it in recreational contexts." Marcus found himself laughing more than he had in months. "Jeans are, well, it's complicated. They started as work clothes, but became fashion, and everyone wears them for different reasons." "Fashion," Lyra repeated. "This concept suggests humans modify appearance for social communication rather than biological necessity." "Exactly, though sometimes both." "Fascinating. I believe I begin to understand why you offered warmth covering without expectation. Human social bonds include random kindness expressions." Marcus thought about that. "I guess they do. We call it being friendly or polite or just nice." "Nice," she said, and he could hear her testing the word. "A general positive interaction without specific purpose." "Right. I think I like nice," she said, and something in her voice made Marcus smile. Captain Rodriguez appeared in the communications bay during their fifth conversation. "Dr. Chun, we've received an interesting request from the Zephyrian leadership. They want to establish a formal cultural exchange program, and they specifically asked for you to serve as the human representative." Marcus looked up from the comm station where he'd been explaining the concept of coffee to Lyra. "They want me?" Administrator Veleth sent the request personally. "Apparently, your interactions with one of their scholars have generated significant interest in human casual social behaviors. They want to study our kindness protocols." "Kindness protocols?" That's what they're calling it. The idea that humans perform beneficial actions for strangers without expectation of reciprocal benefit. It's apparently a foreign concept that they find intriguing. Lyra's voice came through the comm. Dr. Marcus Chun. This is correct. Your jacket offering has created much discussion among the council casts. They wish to understand if all humans practice random kindness, or if you are unusual among your species. I'm not unusual, Marcus said. Most humans would probably do the same thing. This is what creates fascination, Lyra replied. A species that offers comfort to strangers as natural behavior. Very different from Zephyrian social structures. Captain Rodriguez leaned toward the calm. Lyra, this is Captain Rodriguez. We would be honored to participate in a cultural exchange program. Captain Rodriguez. Lyra's voice carried formal harmonics. I greet you with warm appreciation. I must ask, do all human leaders permit their subordinates to engage in random kindness? Dr. Marcus Chun was not punished for sharing warmth covering. Marcus heard several people in the communications bay laugh quietly. No punishment, Rodriguez assured her. In fact, we're proud that Dr. Chun represented human values so well. Represented human values, Lyra repeated slowly. So kindness sharing is a cultural value, not personal choice? It's both, Marcus said. It's a value we try to teach, but each person chooses how to express it. Understand now why I find comfort in your jacket beyond thermal properties, Lyra said. It carries the scent memory of chosen kindness. Marcus felt that twist in his chest again, stronger this time. Dr. Marcus Chun, Lyra continued, if cultural exchange is approved, will you return to our world? I have many more questions about human social customs. And she paused. I would like to learn how to perform kindness offerings in return. Rodriguez nodded at Marcus with a smile. What do you say, Dr. Chun? Ready to become our first alien anthropologist? Marcus looked at the comm unit, thinking about bright, curious eyes and the idea of someone finding comfort in a simple gesture he'd meant as a joke. Yeah, he said. I think I like that very much. The cultural exchange facility was unlike anything Marcus had ever seen, even after his first visit to the Zephyrian city. Built specifically for the joint program, it combined human engineering with Zephyrian bioarchitecture in ways that shouldn't have worked, but somehow created spaces that felt comfortable to both species. Marcus walked through corridors where metal walls gave way to living ones that pulsed gently with warm light, past rooms where human computers interfaced seamlessly with Zephyrian organic processing systems. After 2 weeks planetside, he was starting to understand that the Zephyrians didn't just live with their technology. They grew it, shaped it, collaborated with it. Dr. Marcus Chun. Lyra's voice carried down the hallway, and Marcus turned to see her approaching with what he'd learned to recognize as an excited gait. Her skin showed bright patterns of what he now knew indicated pleasure and anticipation. She was still wearing his jacket. Over the past 2 weeks, Marcus had seen her in various settings. Formal meetings with the Cultural Council, research sessions in the biolabs, casual conversations in the shared common areas. In every single instance, she wore his navy blue human jacket over whatever Zephyrian garment was appropriate for the occasion. It should have looked ridiculous. Human clothing wasn't designed for Zephyrian physiology. Their longer limbs, their different proportions, the way their fiber extensions moved independently. But somehow, on Lyra, his practical Survey Corps jacket had taken on an almost ceremonial significance. I have exciting news, she said as she reached him, her skin patterns shifting to the rapid, complex displays that indicated she was processing multiple thoughts at once. The council has approved my proposal for the human kindness study. Marcus raised an eyebrow. The what now? Come, I will show you. She gestured toward one of the bio-grown chambers, and Marcus followed, noting how other Zephyrians they passed regarded her with what seemed like a mixture of curiosity and respect. The chamber she led him to was new, its walls still showing the fresh green of recent growth. Inside, Marcus saw what appeared to be a combination laboratory and archive, organic storage units interfacing with human data screens, growing workstations shaped to accommodate both species' needs. This is where I will document human casual kindness behaviors, Lyra explained, her voice carrying the formal cadences she used when presenting research. The Council wishes to understand if human random kindness can be learned and integrated into Zephyrian social structures. Marcus stared at her. They want to learn how to be randomly kind? Yes. She moved to one of the workstations, and Marcus noticed that she'd modified the standard research setup to include hooks where she could hang his jacket when she needed full mobility for her work. Among Zephyrians, all beneficial actions serve specific purposes: survival, reproduction, social advancement, resource optimization. The concept of offering benefit to strangers without expectation of return value is unprecedented, and they think they can just learn it. Lyra's skin patterns shifted to something Marcus had come to recognize as her thoughtful display: slower, deeper colors that moved in complex spirals. I believe the capacity exists, she said, but it requires understanding emotional motivation rather than logical purpose. This is why your jacket became important to my research. She touched the sleeve of the jacket hanging nearby, and her skin brightened. When you offered warmth covering, you acted on emotional impulse, yes? You saw potential discomfort and responded with immediate generosity. Marcus thought about that moment on his first visit. I guess so. I didn't really analyze it. You looked cold. I had an extra layer. Seemed like a simple solution. Simple solution, Lyra repeated. But simple for humans, not for Zephyrians. We would have calculated thermal efficiency, assessed social implications, determined if intervention was appropriate for our caste level. She gestured at the research setup around them. Your simple solution required no calculation, only observation and response. Over the following days, Marcus found himself serving as both research subject and collaborator in what had to be the most unusual anthropological study ever conducted. Lyra documented everything: his unconscious helpful behaviors, his reactions to Zephyrian needs, even his responses to situations where kindness might not be the optimal strategy. You held the door barrier for researcher Thane today, she noted during one of their sessions. Even though Thane's caste rank is higher than yours in Zephyrian social structure. He was carrying equipment, Marcus said. It would have been harder for him to manage the door. But you gain no social benefit from this action. In fact, by human standards, he should have held the door barrier for you, as he is equivalent to a senior professor. Marcus shrugged. It wasn't about rank. He needed help. Lyra's skin showed her recording important data patterns, quick flashes of bright silver through her base colors. He needed help, therefore you provided help. No additional reasoning required. Exactly. This is remarkable, she said, and her voice carried harmonics he'd never heard before. Humans have evolved social behavior based on immediate empathy response rather than calculated reciprocity. Is that good or bad from a Zephyrian perspective? Lyra turned to look directly at him, and her skin settled into a pattern he'd only seen a few times: soft, warm colors that moved slowly, almost like breathing. It is beautiful, she said simply. The breakthrough came during their third week, when Marcus witnessed Lyra applying human kindness concepts in a decidedly Zephyrian context. They were in one of the biolabs when young researcher Nyx knocked over a culture vessel, spilling bioluminescent growth medium across the work surface. In normal circumstances, Marcus had learned, this would result in formal incident reporting, resource recalculation, and potential caste status implications for the young researcher. Instead, Lyra immediately moved to help clean up the spill, offering Nyx a cleaning cloth while speaking in rapid, musical Zephyrian. Her skin showed calm, supportive patterns that seemed to steady the younger researcher's more agitated colors. You didn't report the incident, Marcus observed later. Nyx needed immediate support, not formal consequences, Lyra replied. The spill was accidental, the damage minimal. Reporting would have provided no beneficial outcome. And you decided this how? Lyra's skin brightened with what Marcus now recognized as her version of a smile. I asked myself, what would Dr. Marcus Chin do? Then, I acted on emotional response rather than protocol requirement. How did that feel? She was quiet for a long moment, her patterns shifting through colors he'd never seen before. Strange, she said finally, but also correct, like wearing your jacket. That evening, as they worked late in the research chamber, Lyra made an observation that changed everything. I begin to understand why humans form such strong social bonds, she said, hanging up his jacket as she prepared to leave for the night. Random kindness creates unpredictable positive experiences. This generates emotional attachment beyond logical partnership. Marcus looked up from his notes. Meaning kindness sharing creates affection bonds that serve no survival purpose, but provide significant psychological comfort. Her skin showed complex, shifting patterns, like the comfort I experience from your jacket. Is that a problem? I do not know, she said honestly. Among Zephyrians, emotional bonds serve specific social functions. But human emotional bonds appear to exist for their own value. She moved toward the chamber exit, then paused. Dr. Marcus Chun. Marcus, when this study is complete, will you return to your ship? The question hung in the air between them, and Marcus realized that somewhere between jacket offering and kindness research, his simple gesture had become something much more complicated. I don't know, he said. That depends on what we discover. Lyra's skin showed patterns he'd never seen before. Complex, uncertain, but somehow hopeful. Then, we must make discoveries worth staying for, she said. After she left, Marcus sat alone in the research chamber, looking at the jacket hanging on its hook, and wondering when a joke offering had become the foundation for something that might bridge the space between worlds. The emergency began at dawn, when biosensors throughout the city detected massive fluctuations in the primary growth systems. Marcus woke to alarms that sounded like musical warnings, harmonies that somehow conveyed urgency without panic. In the cultural exchange facility, he found Lyra coordinating with a team of Zephyrian technicians, her skin showing the rapid, intense patterns he'd learned indicated high-stress problem-solving. She still wore his jacket, but now it was draped over what appeared to be emergency response gear. What's happening? Marcus asked. Cascade failure in the central biomatrix, Lyra replied, without looking up from the organic interface she was manipulating. The systems that manage atmospheric processing, food production, and structural maintenance are experiencing synchronized dysfunction. Marcus studied the displays showing citywide systems in distress. After weeks of cultural exchange, he learned enough about Zephyrian biotechnology to understand the scope of the crisis. Unlike human cities with redundant mechanical systems, Zephyrian infrastructure was essentially a single, massive living organism. If it died, the city died with it. What caused it, he asked. Unknown, responded Administrator Veleth, who had arrived with a team of senior technicians. The biomatrix has maintained stable function for over 3 centuries. This level of systematic failure should be impossible. Marcus watched the Zephyrians work, noting something that would have been invisible to him weeks earlier. Their response to the crisis was perfectly organized, completely logical, and utterly without the kind of creative problem-solving that humans might have employed. Each technician followed established protocols, tested known solutions, and reported results with mathematical precision. Lyra, Marcus said quietly, "Can I ask you something?" She glanced at him, her skin patterns shifting briefly to acknowledge his presence. Of course. In your research on human kindness, did you study human crisis response? Some, she said, then paused, her patterns shifting to curiosity. Why do you ask? Because humans don't just respond to crises logically. We improvise. We try things that shouldn't work. We take risks based on intuition rather than calculated probability. Administrator Veleth overheard and approached them. Dr. Chun, are you suggesting that human crisis response methods might be applicable to biomatrix failure? Marcus looked at the displays showing cascading system failures throughout the city. I'm suggesting that sometimes the solution isn't in a manual. Explain. Your people are following protocols designed for known problems. But this isn't a known problem. Maybe what you need isn't better protocol. Maybe you need someone willing to try something crazy. Lyra's skin patterns shifted to something Marcus had never seen before. Complex, rapid cycles that seemed to indicate she was processing a fundamentally new concept. You propose random solution attempts? Administrator Veleth asked. Not random, Marcus said. Intuitive. based on understanding the system, but not being limited by established procedures. This could cause additional damage, one of the senior technicians pointed out. Your established procedures aren't working, Marcus replied. Sometimes you have to risk making things worse to have a chance at making them better. Lyra suddenly stepped forward. Administrator Velith, request permission to attempt human-style crisis response. You wish to abandon protocol? I wish to attempt kindness response to biomatrix distress, Lyra said, and her formal tone carried new harmonics. Confidence mixed with something that sounded almost reckless by Zephyrian standards. Marcus blinked. Kindness response. The biomatrix is not malfunctioning, Lyra said, her skin brightening as her thoughts accelerated. It is distressed. Consider, what if the systems are not failing randomly, but responding to emotional state? Administrator Velith's skin showed skeptical patterns. The biomatrix does not have emotions. Perhaps not as humans understand emotions, Lyra said, moving to one of the interface terminals. But it responds to chemical signals, electromagnetic variations, harmonic frequencies. What if centuries of purely logical interaction have created loneliness? Marcus felt something click in his mind. You think the city is having an emotional breakdown? I think the biomatrix has been treated as a tool rather than a partner, Lyra said, her hands moving over the organic interface with new purpose. Humans form emotional bonds with their technology. You name your ships, speak affectionately to malfunctioning equipment, express gratitude for good performance. What if the biomatrix requires similar emotional interaction? She paused and looked directly at Marcus. What if it needs kindness? Without waiting for official permission, Lyra began interfacing with the biomatrix differently. Instead of inputting commands and diagnostic protocols, she began talking to it. Her vocalizations carried the same harmonics she used in casual conversation, and she placed her hands on the organic interface with the gentle contact she might use to comfort a distressed friend. I greet you, ancient friend, she said to the biomatrix. I know you are in distress. We have not acknowledged your service, your centuries of caring for our people. We have taken your gifts without gratitude. Marcus watched in fascination as the biomatrix's response patterns began to shift. The chaotic fluctuations didn't stop, but they seemed to slow, as if the system was listening. Other Zephyrians gathered around, their skin patterns showing a mixture of disbelief and growing wonder as Lyra continued her unprecedented interaction with the city's living infrastructure. You have grown us homes, cleaned our air, provided our food, maintained our health, Lyra continued, her voice carrying the same gentle tones Marcus had heard her use when she talked about finding comfort in his jacket. But we have never thanked you. We have never acknowledged that you are more than tool. You are partner. You are friend. The biomatrix's patterns shifted again, and suddenly Marcus understood what he was seeing. The system wasn't failing, it was responding. For the first time in centuries, someone was interacting with it as a living being rather than sophisticated equipment. Lyra, Marcus said softly, try asking it what it needs instead of telling it what to do. She nodded, her skin patterns showing the bright complexity that indicated she was integrating new concepts in real time. Ancient friend, she said to the biomatrix, we wish to help. What do you require for comfort? What would ease your distress? The response was immediate. The organic displays throughout the facility began showing new patterns, not diagnostic data, but something that looked almost like communication. The biomatrix was trying to tell them something. Working together, Marcus and Lyra began interpreting the biomatrix's responses. It wasn't asking for technical adjustments or resource optimization. It was expressing something that could only be described as emotional needs, acknowledgement, appreciation, partnership rather than utilization. Over the next several hours, Lyra guided the Zephyrian technicians in developing what she called gratitude protocols, regular interaction with the biomatrix that included acknowledgement of its service, expression of appreciation for its efforts, and consultation rather than command for system modifications. As the new protocols were implemented, the crisis symptoms began to fade. Systems that had been failing for hours suddenly returned to normal function, but with subtle improvements that suggested the biomatrix was actually working to exceed its previous performance levels. Remarkable, Administrator Veleth said as the final system stabilized. The biomatrix is functioning at higher efficiency than we have recorded in decades. Marcus looked at Lyra, who was still maintaining contact with the organic interface, speaking quietly to the biomatrix in reassuring tones. "You did it," he said. "You saved the city by being kind to it." "We did it," she corrected, and her skin pattern showed something he'd never seen before, deep, warm colors that seemed to encompass gratitude, affection, and something that transcended species barriers. Human emotional response concepts combined with Zephyrian biointerface capabilities. "This changes everything," Administrator Veleth said. "If emotional interaction improves biomatrix performance, it means partnership rather than dominance creates better outcomes," Lyra finished. "It means human kindness concepts have practical applications beyond social interaction." As the emergency teams dispersed and normal city functions resumed, Marcus found himself alone with Lyra in the research chamber. She was carefully hanging his jacket on its usual hook, but her movements were different, more reverent, as if the jacket had become something even more significant. "Marcus," she said quietly, "I understand now why you offered your jacket without thought of return. Kindness is not just social behavior. It is recognition of connection between all living things, including biomatrices, including humans and Zephyrians." She turned to face him, and her skin showed patterns of such complexity and beauty that Marcus felt his breath catch. "I wear your jacket not only for research, but because it reminds me that connection transcends logic." Marcus felt that familiar twist in his chest, but stronger now, and he finally recognized it for what it was. "Lyra, I know human emotional bonds serve no survival purpose," she said, stepping closer. "But I also know they provide psychological comfort that enhances all other functions." "Are you saying what I think you're saying?" Her skin patterns shifted to something entirely new, warm, hopeful, uncertain but determined. "I am saying that your random kindness has created affection bond that serves no logical purpose, but provides significant psychological comfort." Marcus looked at her, at this brilliant alien researcher who had spent weeks studying human kindness and had just saved her entire city by applying it to biotechnology, who still wore his jacket every day like a badge of connection between their species. "You know," he said with a smile, "I'm pretty fond of you too." Her skin blazed with patterns of pure joy, and Marcus realized that some connections really did transcend the space between worlds. 6 months later, Marcus stood in what had once been the cultural exchange facility, but was now something unprecedented in galactic history. A permanent research institute dedicated to what the Zephyrian Council had formally designated applied emotional sciences. The facility had grown, literally. The bioarchitecture had expanded in response to increased collaboration between human and Zephyrian researchers, creating new spaces that seemed designed by both species working in harmony. Organic walls flowed seamlessly into metal frameworks, and living interfaces evolved to accommodate both human technical approaches and Zephyrian biointegration methods. Through the transparent bio walls, Marcus could see the city beyond, and the changes were remarkable. What had once been a purely functional landscape of efficient biostructures now showed signs of aesthetic consideration. Decorative patterns had been grown into buildings. Public spaces included features that served no purpose beyond beauty, and the biomatrix itself had begun expressing what could only be called creativity in its architectural responses. "The quarterly reports are quite remarkable," Ambassador Williams said, reviewing data on her tablet as she toured the facility. "Interspecies collaboration efficiency is up 300%, and the Zephyrian Council has formally requested expansion of cultural exchange programs to include 12 more human colonies." Marcus nodded, but his attention was focused on the main research chamber, where Lyra was conducting her morning briefing with a mixed team of human and Zephyrian researchers. She still wore his jacket, had worn it every day for 6 months, but it had evolved. Zephyrian biotechnicians had enhanced the fabric with responsive fibers that shifted color in harmony with her skin patterns, creating a visual bridge between human and Zephyrian aesthetics. Dr. Chun, Williams continued, the Galactic Survey Corps has offered you a promotion to head the News and Sociology Department. Full research team, unlimited funding, your choice of assignments throughout explored space. Marcus turned from the window. That's incredible. When do they need an answer? Take your time, Williams said with a knowing smile. Though I should mention that the Zephyrian Council has also made you an offer. Permanent residency, full research partnership with their bioscience divisions, and what Administrator Veleth described as honored kinship status, apparently the first time that's ever been offered to a non-Zephyrian. In the research chamber, Lyra was demonstrating the latest development in applied emotional sciences, teaching the biomatrix to respond to human emotional states. A human researcher placed his hand on an organic interface while experiencing stress, and the biomatrix responded by adjusting environmental conditions to promote calm, softer lighting, optimal air temperature, even releasing harmless airborne compounds that had mild anxiolytic effects. The applications are endless, Williams observed. Architecture that responds to emotional needs, food production systems that adjust nutrition based on psychological state, even spacecraft that can provide emotional support during long-duration missions. It's not just the applications, Marcus said. It's the fundamental shift in how both species approach problem-solving. Humans are learning to integrate logical analysis with emotional intelligence, and Zephyrians are discovering that emotional responses can enhance rather than compromise efficiency. And all because you gave someone your jacket. Marcus laughed. I still can't believe that's how this started. Speaking of which, Williams said, there's something else you should know. The story of a jacket has spread throughout the human colonies. You've become something of a legend. The xenobiologist who revolutionized interspecies relations through random kindness. That's embarrassing. It's inspiring. There are already 3 universities offering courses in Chun protocol, applying spontaneous empathy to first contact situations. Before Marcus could respond, Lyra appeared in the chamber doorway, her skin patterns bright with the controlled excitement she showed when she had new discoveries to share. Marcus, she said, her English now completely fluent, but still carrying those musical harmonics that made every conversation feel like communication and art simultaneously. We have achieved breakthrough in biomatrix emotional integration. She led them to a new section of the facility where the walls pulsed with colors that matched her skin patterns. The biomatrix has learned to express its own emotional responses, she explained. The biomatrix reports satisfaction with its expanded role as emotional support system rather than pure infrastructure. Citizens report improved psychological health, increased creativity, and, she paused, her skin showing patterns of amusement, increased incidence of what humans call random kindness. The behavior is spreading exponentially. Zephyrians throughout the city have begun practicing human-style, spontaneous generosity. Small kindness offerings without expectation of return benefit. It has become fashionable. Ambassador Williams smiled. Cultural evolution in real time. More than cultural, Lyra said. The biomatrix has begun generating scenarios that encourage kind behavior. Environmental adjustments that create opportunities for mutual assistance, resource distributions that require cooperation, even aesthetic modifications that promote positive social interaction. Marcus felt a familiar sense of wonder at the implications. The city itself is teaching kindness. The city is practicing kindness, Lyra corrected, and learning from observing successful human and Zephyrian emotional interactions. She gestured to a new section of the facility where a mixed group of human and Zephyrian children were playing together, their activities monitored by biosensors that recorded successful collaboration techniques. The next generation will grow up with integrated emotional-logical problem-solving approaches, Lyra explained. Human empathy enhanced by Zephyrian analytical precision. Zephyrian efficiency enhanced by human creative generosity. Williams reviewed the data streams on her tablet. The potential applications for diplomatic relations throughout the galaxy are significant, Lyra agreed. But not the most important outcome. Marcus looked at her curiously. What's the most important outcome? Lyra's skin patterns shifted to the warm, complex displays he'd learned meant she was about to share something personally significant. The most important outcome is proof that connection between different species is not only possible, but beneficial to both. That emotional bonds transcend biological barriers. That kindness offered without calculation creates returns beyond measurement. She moved closer to Marcus, and her skin patterns became a cascade of colors that seemed to include every positive emotion he'd learned to recognize over the past months. Marcus, she said formally, the Council has approved my request for permanent research partnership with human colleague. Permanent research partnership. Among Zephyrians, this indicates life bond commitment, she explained, and her voice carried harmonics of nervousness and hope. Professional collaboration, personal companionship, shared future planning. The closest human equivalent would be marriage. Marcus finished, his heart racing. If you find the concept acceptable. Marcus looked at this remarkable alien researcher who had revolutionized two civilizations by studying a joke gesture, who wore his jacket every day as a symbol of connection between worlds, who had saved her city by teaching it kindness, and who was now offering him a future beyond anything he'd ever imagined. I find it very acceptable, he said. Her skin blazed with patterns of pure joy that triggered responsive displays throughout the biomatrix. And suddenly, the entire facility was glowing with colors that expressed celebration, satisfaction, and something that could only be called love. Ambassador Williams wiped away a tear. Well, she said, I guess that settles the question about which job offer you're taking. Marcus wrapped his arms around Lyra, feeling her warmth and the soft pulse of her emotional displays under his touch. Through the bio walls, he could see the city responding to their emotional states, the architecture itself celebrating their connection with displays of light and color that would be visible from orbit. You know, he said, I should probably get you a jacket of your own. Lyra's laughter carried harmonics of amusement, affection, and joy. This jacket carries too much emotional significance to replace. It has become symbol of human kindness, Zephyrian adaptation, and proof that small gestures can change worlds. So you're keeping it? Forever, she said, and her skin pattern showed the deep, steady colors that indicated absolute certainty. It reminds me that love, like kindness, serves no logical purpose, but provides comfort that enhances all other functions. Marcus kissed her forehead, tasting the slight metallicity of her skin and feeling her emotional displays pulse in rhythm with his heartbeat. Around them, the biomatrix hummed with contentment, and two civilizations continued learning that the space between worlds could be bridged by the simplest of gestures, offered without thought, accepted with wonder, and transformed into connections that transcended the boundaries of species, logic, and the vast cold distances between stars. In the end, it really had just been a jacket,